to get on with it. Thanks for joining us for the first Breakfast Club. A little bit housekeeping. I was going to put everybody on mute, but you seem to have muted yourselves and the background noise isn't too bad, so we'll leave that as an ad hoc thing at the moment. Just to keep the flow of things, if you've got any questions, if you could drop them into the chat, which you can access from the Show Conversations button at the top of your screen. I'll probably be leaving it open to discussion at the end for the Q&A, since there's less than 10 of us. And as I said, I'm recording the session now, so we'll send that out to you afterwards. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's Derek Zorns. I'm an account manager here at Differentia. Been involved in the world of analytics for nearly 9 years now. In fact, it's my analytics birthday on the 5th of January next year. And I worked at Click for 5.5 years before joining Differentia just over 3 years ago. And COVID-19, coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, it's caused us to find different ways to carry on with our work and private lives. I also believe that we should find different ways to utilise ClickSense. And that could be in the way we deploy it, how we use it, or even integrating third-party software to augment the use of Click for users in the business and people looking after your ClickSense instance. One of those ways for me is Vizlib for Finance. And I'd like to introduce Michael Nordstrom of Vizlib, who will take you through Vizlib for Finance and how including it in ClickSense will help your finance teams. Michael, over to you, sir.
I'm not going to go through a lot of PowerPoints. I'm going to start with that a little bit, just to give you a bit of background. So first about myself, Michael Nordstrom. I have been working with Click, never at Click actually, but with Click for the last 20 years. So a long experience around that. Also, a lot of the customers that I work with have had finance.
Sorry, Michael, there's an issue with your sound, sir.
Ah, there is. Is it better now, or?
Much better, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So, I'll repeat myself then. So, a bit about myself. 20 years with Click, never at Click, but around Click and building solutions for customers. A long time as a consultant around Click. Recent years, I've worked more and more around the different products, the extensions that they're called around Click. And for a year and a half, I've been with Vizlib. And helping out building extensions around ClickSense. And today we're going to focus on finance, but just to give you a bit of overview what we do. Vizlib is a growing company, actually growing quite a lot. We're over 80 employees at the time. We have 4 different offices, actually just opening our 5th and 6th offices within a couple of weeks. We actually have over 700 customers and quite a few languages between us. We're quite an international company, both from our employees and also from our different customers. So what we do is we create different types of solutions for ClickSense. And I'm just going to do this to get rid of that. So the different types of solutions that we have are around visualizations, which is where we kind of started, around self-service, around finance. We have a separate solution for Gantt and collaboration. And just to browse through those before we jump into finance, the library has different types of visualizations. So everything from more advanced bar charts, Meko charts, line charts, you name it. You can see at the bottom of the screen, there's quite a few of these different types of visualizations, like gauges and heat maps, Venn diagrams. So any sort of special type of visualization that you want, we'd probably have that in the library. Then there is the area around self-service, where we have something that we call the custom report, which allows users to actually choose between data and choose the visualization that they visualize. So kind of an interactive user experience for someone who doesn't really want to do development, but still want to be able to analyze more complex data sets or bigger data sets. Then we have finance, which we'll do more in detail. We also have the Gantt chart to be able to handle different types of project setups and visualize the projects. quite advanced in how you can do that. And as you can see, you have some fun things here where you can actually include images inside the chart and things like that. And then we have collaboration, which we'll actually touch on because it kind of connects to what I want to show you around finance and what can be done with finance, and especially when it comes to finance, and maybe adding a bit of extra transactions or corrections or even budget type solutions for business using finance. So that's what we have. Those are the different types of products that we have. And now we're going to focus here in the middle. We're going to focus on finance, and I'm going to stop using PowerPoint, and I'm going to jump into demo and actually show you the finance instead. I will stop for questions after a bit. It does seem that we're not a huge amount of people on the call, so I will open up for questions if you have them after a little bit, and to make sure that everyone's caught up on where we are and what we're doing. So finance. When it comes to finance, and this was kind of a little bit of a chat before we started this call as well, that finance has typically been kind of a slow area and somewhere where it's been difficult to reach with business intelligence and these types of analytic solutions. Usually when I talk to finance, they're quite happy. They're saying that, oh, no, that's not really a problem. We're already doing fine. We have this Excel solution where we're shuffling data around, and we actually get by quite okay, especially around month-end closing. I kind of ask what's going on and how long that takes. And she's like, no, it's not a problem. It only takes us a few days. And then when I analyze that and talk to them more closely, it turns out that what they're actually doing those 2 days is shuffling data around. So it's not actually analyzing the financial month-end closing, but it's just shuffling data between Excel files back and forth and trying to get it organized. And we've always felt that we wanted to change that a little bit. And when I was doing more consulting services around this, I also found that there are so many ways where the finance department could have a bigger role in the company, and it's getting a bigger role since most of the data is now stored in the finance systems, and when we can get that out, we can also include finance in a better way. And one of the blockers for that was that every time I talked to a finance person, they said, oh, but no, that can't be done because you're doing a visualization, you're doing a bar chart, or you're doing a normal table, or you're doing a KPI, and it doesn't look like my P&L. So I figured that, okay, let's see if we can actually create a P&L that looks like a P&L and kind of works like a P&L, but at the same time has a little bit of flexibility. So we created an extension that, if you look at this table on the screen, it kind of looks like a P&L, and it kind of looks like a pivot table, and it's a little bit of both. It is a pivot table, but there are some features that make it a little bit different also from a visual perspective. So as you can see, for example, we have this operating earnings row inside the table, which is obviously a percentage right in the middle of the table, which you wouldn't have in like a normal pivot table where everything would be the sum of everything above or just within that group. Here, what we're actually doing, we're doing partial sums, we're doing rolling sums, we're also having rows that can be expanded. As you can see here, we could look at other costs and we can see that, oh, that's Norway, okay, so, and then there's a link. We could drill down in the data, but there's also some rows where we don't have that expansion, because it wouldn't make sense to expand everything that's under operating earnings because you already have all of that here at the top of the table. So the table works in a slightly different way. But we needed to sort of create this table so that it looked and felt just like the normal P&L. And by the way, we can do balance sheets and cash flow reports just using the same methodology, the same technology. It's very similar from a technical perspective. Obviously, the rows would be quite different, but everything else would be very, very similar. So once we had that cleared, I actually got a good response from most finance departments saying that, oh, but now it actually looks like something we could use. And then we started introducing the dynamics of this, because usually you had quite a few of different setups, and it was taking quite a bit of time to set this up in just cutting it different ways. So for example, you saw that we had Norway. That's actually a country here on the sub row. But when a finance person would look at this, or someone actually doing the bookkeeping, they would probably want to take a look at account instead. And then they would have a separate report for that, which we don't want. So in this case, we would put everything in the same report and allow the users to change. So when I change that to account, now when I drill down, I would instead see the different accounts under licenses, for example, or where I was under other revenue. We would see the different accounts that are connected to other revenue. So we could still drill down into data, but we can also change it. So if we also wanted something different across the top, we could even change that. So let's say that instead of year, month, we actually want to see this by country. Then we can change it to country, and it will see the different countries here across the top. So it kind of looks like a static report, but it's very dynamic in how we can access the data and how we can change what we see. And of course, we also have the normal functionality of ClickSense, like selecting the different months and the different data. Or if we just want to see one country, we can still make selections just like we would in a normal ClickSense application. So all of that functionality is obviously there and obviously connected to the data in a proper way. So we've done now two things. We first visualized it like a normal P&L. We've made it flexible or dynamic, and we wanted to add a little bit more than that. So now a really difficult piece with finance has been introducing different types of visualizations or visual cues and help in the finance data, because we're used to working with data in large Excel files and tables, which are just numbers. But we wanted to add a few more visual cues. And of course, apart from having things like just a color here on top of the values, we can actually start adding a few more visual things. This is called the data bar, which shows us which numbers are greater compared to the others, which makes it easier to find a large discrepancy in the data. We can also do things like arrows up and down to indicate in a more visual way. But I think that these types of indicators that show that are bigger or smaller, depending, actually makes it easier to find the larger discrepancies compared to just looking at the numbers. So we started introducing a few things like that from a visual perspective. And also, of course, we combined it with other visualizations, like here on the right-hand side, we see the different KPIs, which show the most important KPIs, and what you actually see here is the trend over time. In this case, for operating revenue, we see that for the last few months, like January, February, March, and we can see, did we hit the target on the previous months or not? So when we compare this, we don't just see the current situation, but we can also see a bit of a trend and a bit of history on that data. So the next step, when we go beyond that, we actually wanted to take a look at something more, and I'm just going to pick up a different step here. So just give me a second. This. Any questions so far, by the way?
Don't forget to unmute yourself if you've got a question. No?
Okay, cool. Then the next thing would be to actually add a bit of interaction, because one of the things that we saw, especially around that month-end closing, was that usually what organizations did was that they started sending Excel files around. So Excel is a great tool, but it's also fairly static. So when they would sort of collect all the data and then send it out to get feedback, and this could be feedback within finance just to make sure that numbers are correct, or it could be feedback from the organization in terms of, okay, this is actually good or bad, or oh, we should have done better last month, but something happened in the production, or whatever it was that caused a discrepancy typically from the budget or from the forecast. What we saw was that we could actually do that right inside the tool instead. So we can add actually commentary inside ClickSense. So looking at this row here, we have consultation fee, and you see there's a small one here. in this case, I've commented way over budget, but we expect this to drop during June and July. So I can add a comment here related to the data, and then everyone else that I want to see this can actually see the comment. And of course, I can control this with section access, and I control it with other security rules, exactly who sees this, or I can create a hierarchy where all the country managers can see some comments and make some comments, and anyone on a higher level can sort of see all the different comments. This way we can have the conversation around the data inside the tool rather than in separate emails or separate Excel files floating around outside the actual analysis tool. So we see companies using this both to actually correct the data, saying that, oh, actually this number should be higher or lower, and can you please check if we've got this invoice here or something is probably missing. Because once we send this out to the organization, we get the people looking at the data that are actually much closer to the actual customers and the actual suppliers or whatever it is behind the data. So instead of doing this on a really high level, we can get the data out to anyone in the organization that really knows what the data is about and not just see it on the high level. So the comments can be around correcting data, or it can be about getting proper feedback from managers around the numbers and why they're lower or higher than expected. And the cool thing about it is that, of course, that's also saved. So if we make new comments for this month, we would be able to check what we commented on last month or the year before, and we can have that all in the context of our selections. So if we made comments for only on one of the countries, like only on Sweden, then we would only see the comments that are related to Sweden. So it all connects and relates to the data rather than being in more generic form. The comments here are stored in a database, and then they're handled in real time in connection with the finance data. So all the comments here, as soon as I post something new, so this looks great, and then I add that comment. Now the number here will change to a 2, and we'll see those comments right away. So this is updated in real time when we're talking about the data. So it doesn't require any reloads or running through the data again. This is available for everyone at the same time. Then it's stored in the database. So if you want to do something else with those comments, of course, you're free to read the data from that database and maybe store it in another report or collect all the comments in some other type of format. Of course, you can do that and just read it as any normal data from that data source as well. So that's the commentary. This is where I usually do get a few questions, so I'm going to break for just 2 seconds. Any questions so far? Everyone's scared.
See, I think you're doing a really good job, Michael. That's why there's no questions.
Oh, well, let's interpret it
so
like that.
I've got one question. Is this a cloud or on-premise solution?
So we can actually do this in the cloud. Typically, when you do this for larger enterprises, you want the comments to be in your own database and within your own environment. So then you would install it locally, and you would have it installed on your ClickSense server. So that's where you would typically store these comments once you're in production. If you download this today, you can still try it towards our cloud service. That means that you don't have to do an installation to start trying this out. Production, I would probably run it on sort of on your own servers in your own environment, especially since this is finance data and typically quite sensitive. The customers would normally request this to be inside their own solution, their own environment.
Yeah, I ask because there's a movement by companies to go SaaS and cloud first, but things like finance data are particularly sensitive to organizations. So yeah, an on-premise solution was always going to be favorable, isn't it?
Yeah, so far at least, yeah, that's what we see. And the cloud solutions hasn't been that great so far, especially for larger corporations. We still want to be able to optimize the performance and things like that, which is not really what you would do in QuickSense cloud environment. But I mean,
Sure.
it's probably coming and it's probably getting better. It's doesn't really matter to this solution. You can use it either way, but typically this would be an on-prem.
Okay, thank you.
So moving away a little bit from that, but not too far, is around financial adjustments. So we could actually use, so now we're actually touching on one of the other products, which is our input, or actually our write back table, where we could make adjustments. So as you can see, we have a finance solution here on the left, just a normal installation fee, licenses, et cetera, et cetera. And you can see the actual numbers are being picked up. But let's say that we actually wanted to change this. So let's say that we have other revenue, we have other costs, and here the other cost is 63,000. But let's say that we actually wanted that to be 57,000 instead. Then I could actually write back that, and I could say that I actually want to change this number. Say that we only want this to be 57,000, and as I write that back, the data updates with the correct number. Of course, this is not something that you would want to do in your sort of live finance solution, but it's a perfect way to do more advanced what-if analysis and maybe even adding some changes. So one of the use cases here is to use this in the process where you're closing the books for a month, and you can actually add a transaction. You can see the result of making that change, and then someone else can, of course, book that properly into the system. But you can use this to check out the budget. With the table, you could actually make proper sort of budget numbers in here. As you can see, you have most of the rows here. When it comes to really complex, full-on budget solutions, they're obviously quite a hefty investment, much bigger. But if you want to do simple things like doing a temporary budget, or if your budget is really straightforward, then you could definitely use the write back component that we have here to actually do part of your budgeting as well. So, and as you can see, we also track, of course, all those changes that we made, and keep track of who made that change and when did they make it, and how much was it. So all of that's obviously tracked as well. One thing that I probably didn't show you is that, of course, you can still make other types of changes. Like if you want currency, then we can change the currency. But that's more general sense functionality. But just to make sure that everyone's on top of that and use this a lot. And we can also choose just to see the actual transactions. So now going back, this would be the transactions without any adjustments. And then we can flip between those to see what the numbers are if we're using the different adjustments or not. This is actually a really nice way of doing that, and then usually helps a lot when it comes to the process around closing books and around doing the month-end reporting, and also brings that whole conversation, that whole management of data into the analysis tool rather than having that as a separate thing and something outside. And connected to this, we also have something that we call Vizlib teamwork. So apart from being able to actually do comments inside a chart like we did with finance, we can also make comments on the chart itself on a higher level. So we could do it on certain KPIs. So here we have a number of comments on this sales variation data. And the cool thing about this is that when we make comments here on this object, we will be able to see what selections have. So Adrian made a comment here, combined with Central and Canada is slightly better. Then we would actually see Southern, Central, and Canada, just as they're discussing here, those three, and we'll see whatever he saw when he posted the comment. And this type of comment can then be made on the object, or it can be made on the entire sheet. And when we do that, we can do things like mentioning people. We can include a snapshot, and when we mention someone, it will be notified, so we can notify them through Slack, Teams, or email, and then we can attach the data or attach an image to that comment. So there are multiple levels of this, everything from commenting on the most detailed level inside the chart to actually making more generic comments about the solution that we have around the finance. And so use cases here are more or less endless, but just to give you the overview of what all those things can do. Any questions?
No, it does look like you've done a brilliant job today, Michael. You've satisfied everybody's questions and they don't have any at all. Okay.
Have we checked if we have anything in the chat as well?
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on that.
Okay, cool. That's the overview that I wanted to do, and I think I had 30 minutes, so, and we spent, I don't know, 26 or something. So I'm more or less done with my presentation.
Okay, so we got about 4 minutes left now. So thank you for that, Michael. It's, I talk with people a lot about my inner geek, and Vizlib really satisfies my inner geek. I don't know if anybody else experiences that as well. What I think might as well wrap up now. What I'll be doing is I'll send the recording to everybody, and I'll follow up with you over the next couple of days just to find out what you thought about the sessions, see if there's any sessions that you'd like to see addressed around how to use ClickSense further. We've got another one planned in about a month's time around a product that's been internally developed here to help you with the management of ClickSense and your data, and ClickView as well. Some of our customers have got mixed environments, and yeah, I will be in touch unless anybody's got any. I've got somebody just typing now, but if there's no other questions, we can give you a few minutes back in your busy days, and we can get on with it. No, it looks like they're typing slowly.
Thank you everyone for joining, and of course there's more information on our website as well, and more demos and videos. So a simple search for finance and Vizlib, for example, you would definitely get the videos and the other data that we have around this. So there's more material if you want it on our website, and of course also ask Derek if there's anything else you want to know. Yep. And I appreciate the call.
Cool. Just one thing to add. One of the things we were talking about at the end of last week internally here in Differential was possibility of setting up a WhatsApp group for people to actually just talk amongst themselves and talk about how they're using Click and share ideas, mainly on the client side. So that's something I'll be mentioning to you guys when I give you a call in the next couple of days. Just see if that's something you're interested in, because I know trying to find out different ways of using Click internally can be a bit problematic if you're doing it yourself. And we've got a new colleague who started at his previous company, saw massive success in people having these discussions amongst themselves. So something to keep in mind, and I'll have a chat with you about that when we speak in the next few days. Barring that, everybody, thank you very much for joining us today. I'll be in touch, and have an excellent and safe week.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks for your time. Bye.
Pleasure.